and welcome to the home welcome party of one and only John fans. My name is Rob Dawson. That is Terrence Oglesby. We are kind of in this little makeshift studio we got set up over here. We got a nice brick wall in the background. We got the nice Big East carpet over here in front of you, and we got a nice camera set up. I feel pretty good about this, boys. What's going on? How we doing? How we feeling?
We try to offer good hospitality here at the household, hosting and podcasting.
There's no better host, whether it be at your house or on television, than John Fanta. But man, I feel like I'm running on about half a tank, but it's plenty after last night. The games lasted until what, 2, 3 in the morning? Or at least I felt like it lasted until 2, 3 in the morning. That was us. The bar lasted until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm feeling like I'm functioning on about half a tank, but at full Madison Square Garden, my second time going there was unbelievable. What an atmosphere. I didn't see one person in the entire arena in a bad mood, which, I mean, you don't expect that. But at the same time, I think there was a general appreciation. Everybody was happy to be back.
It was really something last night. And I think it was early in the Duke-Kentucky game where it hit me like, we are back. We are back. College basketball is back with fans in the stands. When the credit to MSG, because the first time out of the game, everybody's getting a feel for the atmosphere of Duke, Kentucky. They show Julius Randle. They show RJ Barrett. They then showed Obi Toppin a little bit later. Place is going nuts. And when the noise bounces from side to side at the Garden, you feel it. That's why the Big East tournament at MSG has such a tradition over there, because you get those different. You get UConn and Nova. Last night, it's Duke, Kentucky. That's the best of the best in college basketball, and those fans delivered. So you, the fans, major credit.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. Remember how we talked about how the Garden is the best place to watch a neutral site non-conference game in college basketball. It's that experience where they show Julius Randle and they show RJ Barrett, and you get the Kentucky fans going nuts. Then you get the Duke fans going nuts, and it's like the battle of the fan bases in the arena. It's the best.
Another part too that was intriguing is like they weren't sectioned off. It wasn't like these guys are Kentucky guys, these guys are Duke. Like there were times last night, about 10 minutes ago in the second half, the entire arena was standing up. I mean, there was one time I was just looking around while play was going on, just kind of taking it all in because it was so many people, and just felt good. Good.
And you know what else it felt like? And we brought this up with the Miller brothers. It felt like there was a normal lead up to this season with the level of play we saw last night. The level of play, we talked about how this could be the best season that this sport has seen in quite some time. I think the level that Duke Kentucky game hit on November 9th is a reflection of that. That was a high-level game for a season opener.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. For me, the biggest takeaway that I had coming out of the Champions Classic is like, holy shit, Duke's good. Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway is holy shit, Duke is good. And this is the thing that really stood out to me, okay? I still think Kentucky is like a top 10, top 12 basketball team. But when Duke made their run in the second half, Wendell Moore was on the bench. Paolo Banchero was off getting fluids. And who am I? There was Mark Williams was on the bench with foul trouble. Yeah, Trevor Keels. Who was talking about Trevor Keels in the preseason? Nobody. He took the game over. He took it from like a 4-point game, and they pushed it out to 10, 12, 14 points midway through the second half. And at that point, it was done because you knew Kentucky didn't have it. Kentucky didn't have it.
He was excellent. And I was worried preseason about, hey, man, he's about 235 pounds. Like, that's a big guy. And a lot of those guys, they generate a lot of force. I get worried about their knees, their hips, things like that. Coach K said it in the presser afterwards. He said he is big, he is strong, but he plays so low when he's driving that he can just hold guys off, and he's always on balance. Even on a couple of those fadeaway shots that he made, his shoulders were still square. His discipline as far as shooting, I'm a shooter. So I look at those little nuances. Doster's not a shooter. He doesn't know anything about that. He doesn't know anything about that.
Look at this.
I needed to be
you'd have to pass. You would have to pass the ball for him to learn about how to.
We are the same in that.
We're the same in that. True story for all the listeners. It wasn't until I started shooting jumpers, Fanta didn't have that brick wall right now. I contributed to that. All right. Anyway,
but his discipline scoring. I mean, whether it be in the mid-range, holding guys off and then elevating over the top, man, he was just so impressive. And physically, I mean, I looked at it as a hindrance. That dude's gifted.
Yeah,
that dude's gifted. Could be a defensive end. Could be a defensive end.
Yeah, he knows how to get someone on his hip, and once he gets you on, you're dead. You're dead. Once you're in his pocket, you're dead. You're not going to be able to stop him because he's so good at keeping you from getting back around him, and he's so good at occupying the big when he's coming off those ball screens, like he's a killer, man. I'll tell you this, Fanta. I think that presence, that kind of like guy that can create at the point of attack for what Duke has, that was our question for him, at least for me. Right. We still have it. We're going to talk about the shooting in a second, but having a guy that could go out and can make a play and you don't have to rely on getting the ball to Paolo. You don't have to rely on getting the ball to Mark Williams. That's the difference maker.
It is the difference maker. And I think that coming into the season, we're sitting here saying, will Wendell Moore, will Roach be that type of player who creates a little bit more? It was Trevor Keels. And for him to do that on night one of the season, for him to be at his length and to be able to drive the ball, keep it low, and finish at the level he was finishing at17 when you're driving on Kentucky last night, you were going on the interior against a man who had 17 points and 19 rebounds. I mean, if you would have told me Oscar Tshiebwe would have 17 and 19, I would have said, how much did Kentucky win by? Because how many times does a guy do that in a game that big and they lose? Last night was a revelation of Keels, who entering the night was in the 40s in mock drafts heading into next year. He helped himself the most out of any guy in the history of the Champions Classic last night. He was fantastic. And I'll tell you what the biggest thing that I have is, on top of Keels, Banchero, the images of Coach K. He was pumped up about this one. College basketball, whether you like it or not, is better when the Duke Blue Devils are relevant, because there's a love-hate that springs off a lot like the Yankees in baseball. College basketball can survive. They have the quality of the sport's been great. Duke is back. I'm absolutely buying New Orleans after last night. I know it's one game, but my goodness, more than anything, outside of individual, guys, the length that they have defensively. Kentucky did not know what to do on offense at times, trying to deal with that length, particularly Ty Washington.
Yeah, that's the struggles. We talked about this last night at the bar. Ty Washington, it wasn't all that bad from him in terms of, well, it was bad for him. But for me, it wasn't a problem for what Ty is as a player as much as it was the point of how good Duke is defensively, right? They have so much length and athleticism, man. Think about it. There are lineups that they can roll out there where they have Trevor Keels at the 1. They have Wendell Moore at the 2. They're going to have AJ Griffin at the 3, Paolo at the 4, Mark Williams at the 5. Like, what are you going to do with that?
You said throwback last night. I agree.
Hey, T.O., you played in the ACC back in the day. That is a throwback Duke defensive team, right?
I mean, just big, physical, overwhelm you. I'd hate to bring up the fact that I picked both the winners last night. I mean, I'd hate to talk about that right now as we're going, but 2-0. 0-2, 2-0.
I'm 2-2 because I picked both teams at different points during the day.
That's a good point. But, you look at a couple other stats. Offensive rebounding and rebounding in general, Kentucky dominated, but a lot of those offensive rebounds, I think they ended up with 19, John. Empty possessions, because what would happen is Tshiebwe would get it, would miss layups. They had a lot of bunnies that they just couldn't finish around the rim, because we've said it before the game. Mark Williams' length and Paolo Banchero, there's not a whole lot that they can do with that. And I want to bring one other person up, and he hasn't gotten talked about a whole lot. The Marquette transfer, Theo John, has got some Steven Adams about him. He has got some toughness. He brings an edge to this team. I mean, there was a whole lot of shit talking going on last night, especially between him and who's it, Lance Ware, that came off the bench. It was intriguing. It was awesome.
That is the biggest difference right there between the two teams, right? When Duke loses Tshiebwe, they bring in Lance Ware, who is like, okay, Damian Collins, who's not ready for that.
He's not ready. And it showed last night. Him and Ty Washington together, just physically, you could see they're not where they're gonna be, but they just ooze potential. I mean, Ty Washington, let's call it what it is. 3 of 14. At the same time, he's still able to get 14 shots off against probably, and they weren't bad shots. He just couldn't make them.
Yeah, some of them weren't great shots. But the point is, when Duke loses their front line, when Mark Williams gets in foul trouble, when Paolo goes out with a cramp, they bring in a guy that is 23 years old, is built like a defensive end, and was an all Big East defensive player.
And a guy who has been ejected from Madison Square Garden.
That's true.
Theo John got thrown out of the game at MSG. I don't know if you remember this. You definitely remember it. A couple years ago, Seton Hall Marquette, There's a mini brawl, like not a major one, but mini. There was some pushing and shoving.
It was a kerfuffle
on the baseline. Yes,
kerfuffle. I like that. I like
the
that.
officials made it probably even more than it was. We have multiple players getting thrown out of the game. We have, I don't know if you remember this one, Miles Powell was thrown out and then brought back in.
Yeah, he was. It was
And
crazy.
Theo John gets thrown out. He gets thrown out in that game. In other words, Theo John's played in the Garden. He's been thrown out. This ain't nothing. Last night was nothing for him. He's like, I'm familiar with MSG, and he played like it. To be able to bring in a guy that size and a guy that tough off the bench, it's the perfect situation. It's a great transfer pickup. Obviously, the Steve Wojciechowski, Mike Krzyzewski connection there. He comes from Marquette. Wojo obviously loses his job.
And the big thing is, the most important thing is he has accepted being a guy off of the bench. It's not always easy when you're a starter at a program, when you're coming in, he was an all Big East defensive. He was the best defensive center in the Big East last season. Right.
Isaiah Whaley was given the award.
Okay, you're right. I consider him
whatever. I know.
You're right. Isaiah Whaley. Isaiah Whaley should be an All-American.
Listen to Top Dogs.
He has to listen to Top Dogs. That's what you should do. But the point is, Theo John's accepted a role. He was a very, very good player at Marquette, and he's accepted a role at Duke. And last point, and then we can whatever you got to say. I know you got some. You got that look in your eye. You got something to say
right now.
But here's the thing: Oscar Tshiebwe, right? He was the only player on Kentucky last night that had a positive plus minus. Do you know who led Duke in plus minus? Theo John.
Really?
Theo John led Duke in plus minus. And
know.
it's not like that's not the best stat in the world, but that kind of
sums
up.
It's
a good indicator for what happened last night in that game.
Yeah. Well, he brings an edge that I don't think Duke has had the past couple of years. I mean, you got these kids that are really talented, but they don't really have that guy who's going to punch you in the gut when you're getting a rebound or something like that. They needed that. They needed that hard screen setter that they didn't have last year. They needed guys like that. Mark Williams got incredible length. Is he a bruiser? I think he's the perfect complement to him coming off the bench. He's tough as nails. He finishes around the rim. And there were a couple of possessions last night. Like he dominated the course of play defensively.
He had two ridiculous blocks that changed the game. During that run where they kind of put it away, he had two blocks that he put through the backboard that changed the game. I think they were both on Severe Wheeler, who we'll get to him in a second. But I got to make a point really quick, guys. We are now 11 minutes into recording this podcast. We have not talked about Paolo Banchero, who had 22 points, who had 7 boards, who drew 7 fouls last night, who was, for the record, significantly more advanced on the defensive end than I expected him to be, who was just as strong as we expected, but there's no way that dude is 250 or 260. He's lean, and he can move, he can slide his feet.
He's a monster, a composed monster, though. I thought he handled the stage of last night so well. He absolutely looked like a player and human that you could see walking up when Adam Silver calls the number 1 pick in the draft. That is the fact. You could see him walking up on that stage as number 1 pick in the draft. And we were talking about it heading into this season. Last night, the belief came out of that entire building, everybody that was watching. If you watched him in person, what doesn't he do well? What doesn't he do well? I'm curious to see when teams do pack it in, what his decision-making is. But this kid created, drove. You could pack it in. Guess what? He'll still drive at you, and he'll finish, and he'll get fouled if he doesn't finish. I love everything about Paolo Banchero. I love everything about him. And for a first impression in college basketball, give him a 10 out of 10, battling through cramps, too, and still making winning plays. He's not a guy who came in last night and was out for just me, for me. He made winning play after winning play, and the defensive advancement, that is a big indicator of just how good this kid could be. The fact he was that good defensively on opening night.
It was incredible. And I'm going to have a little, I don't know even if it's a hot take. They say you save the best for last. I think Paolo Banchero is the best NBA prospect that Coach K has ever had.
Better than Zion?
Better than Zion.
I can't do that today. I'm sorry.
Zion weighs 315 right now. He's a better prospect. What doesn't he do?
No, he's got ample length. I love him. I love him. Look, I love him.
Grant Hill, all these guys. Anybody he's ever had. He is the best one.
I just want to let you guys know.
Hold on.
I just want to let you guys know. I did not say that. John Fanta did not say that.
Terrence Oglesby saying he's wearing a Clemson shirt. So, like, let's be honest. He does everything. I was so impressed with the way he handled the ball off the dribble, the way he found his teammates when the defense collapsed. Now, they got to shoot the ball better. We'll get into that in a moment. They've got to help him out a little bit. They've got to shoot the ball better because what's going to end up happening, guys are going to press up. And Coach Calipari said it last night in the post-game presser. He said, we want to make him get in the lane, make decisions, and pitch out. They're going to do that this season. Duke has to be able to knock shots down from the perimeter, or else it is going to close up in a hurry. And even so, they're going to be able to hang in a lot of games because they're so big and physical. They're going to be able to overwhelm you. You talked about old school Duke. Old school Duke was on display last night. And Paolo Banchero, man, I was so impressed with his off the dribble game. He was bringing the ball up. He had the maturity to get rid of it if he didn't have anything. He didn't force the issue. This Duke team, I just don't know who stops him. On an on night, that shimmy fadeaway about 15 feet on the left side, when a guy came to double and he spun away from the double team, he saw the double team coming, spins away from the double team and knocks down a fadeaway.
So here's my question to both of you.
He did that at 18 years old.
Insanity. Although the quote about being the best prospect Coach K's ever had.
Name a better one.
Well, Zion Williamson would be.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So let's hold. Okay.
The reason I say that, Zion had obvious holes. Obvious holes. Can't shoot. Worried about his weight. Is he going to get hurt? How long is he going to be able to play? But where's the hole with Paolo Banchero? Where's the hole? I can't find one. 6'10".
On November the 10th, can I say I need to see a little bit more of a sample size to come over to your camp?
No, sir. Fanta, you better hop on this boat right now.
I can't hop on the boat. I'm not hopping on the ferry. Neither are you. I'm going to ask you both this, though. Where do you lean? Are you either encouraged that Duke only hit 1-3 and won the way they did still by 8 points, or are you concerned about that long term? Which side do you lean more on?
I'm absolutely concerned.
Who hit the
three? Trevor Keels. I am absolutely concerned about it for the simple reason that we saw this with the Zion team, right? What you would do is you would just pile people in the paint. You would dare them to shoot over the top. It got to the point, I don't know if you guys remember this against UCF. They put in the second round of the tournament, they put Taco Fall on Trey Jones and just had Taco Fall stand in front of the rim and did not guard Trey Jones. And Duke needed, I mean, it was kind of a miracle that they were able to get out of the second round of that tournament game. And I think that we might see a situation where it's similar. Now, I think Trevor Keels is a better offensive weapon than any of the guards that Duke team had. He's better than Trey Jones offensively. He's better than Jordan Goldwire was offensively. But it's still something where you have to be able to find a way to create space for your – look, they're going to overpower you this year. This is who they are. They are Paolo and they are Mark Williams with a bunch of good guards. You have to be able to create the space for Paolo to operate. Because what we saw he's a very good mid-range shooter. He's not a great three-point shooter yet. He's just not.
No, but you know what? He's able to do a nice job of, like last night with about 6 minutes left and Kentucky kind of creeping, but they had made the full-on run quite yet. He comes back in from the cramps and he takes the ball. He's like 16 feet away from the bucket on the left baseline. Nonetheless, he turns, he knocks that down in your eye hole. This kid creates for himself at the mid-range level. I'm wondering here, like for me, I expect Wendell Moore to keep ascending. Am I wrong for not thinking that? Because he's got to be part of this equation.
He was good last night, but the problem is he's not a guy that's going to like make jumpers.
He needs to make jumpers.
He does, but
he's got a space of floor.
But that's like saying we need Terrence Oglesby to be a great defensive player. Like
it's not just not
sometimes you are what you are.
Absolute refusal.
Sometimes you just are what you are. So that's if
that Andre, we compared him a little bit. At least I did to Andre Iguodala. If he can do that, he doesn't have to be great. The 30 to 35. If he could be that guy, you saw what he did with Severe Wheeler last.
The thing is, he doesn't have to be a great shooter. He has to be a good enough shooter that defenses need to respect it.
33 to 35%.
You got to keep him honest. Same thing with Trevor Keels. Same thing with Jeremy Roach. That's why I think there's a lot of value in Joey Baker and his ability to shoot and pull people away from the basket. And here's the other thing. AJ Griffin is probably the second best NBA prospect on this team. If you talk to NBA scouts in terms of the way that he could defend, his versatility, his physicality, he played 10 minutes last night. He's not there yet.
He's not
there yet. I mean, it's also he's coming off the injury, so like I'm not saying he's not ready, but like you got to give that one a little bit of time to acclimate. Can we pivot to Kentucky real quick?
I want to do that exactly right now, because I was just going to say, like, thinking more about the game. You know, I jetted back from here at halftime to get home for the post-game show and watch it on the app, but watch the first half of the game, obviously, in person. When that game hits halftime, you look up at the board, Kentucky's had next to nothing beyond one player. And that's why Kentucky fans should be encouraged, because you know what? Last year, you had zero backcourt rhythm. You had no semblance of knowing really who you were. I got to give applause to Severe Wheeler for a first half last night. He had 12 points and 5 assists. He's accounting for 80% of the team's points in the first half last night.
For sure. He was great in the first half, and he had a couple of absolute dimes. He also had 7 turnovers. He also had 3 shots put through the rim in the second half when you kind of pulled away.
There was a huge adjustment in the second half.
No. All I was going to say is Severe is a great playmaker. You cannot rely on him to be a guy that's going to get you 16 and 10 every single night, because that's not going to be the best that Kentucky can be. They need Ty to be better. He needs to be the guy. And the biggest thing is they need somebody behind Big Sheeb to step up and be able to contribute. They cannot get their ass kicked the way they got their ass kicked without those guys. Now, to be fair, Paolo, Mark Williams,
you're not going to see other guys like that. Those two are incredible.
There aren't very many teams like that. But if you look at the best teams in the country, Kofi Coburn, Hunter Dickinson, Trevion Williams, and Zach Edey, like they're all
Big Ten.
Only had 11 bench points, by the way. Kentucky only had 11 bench points.
I mean, at the end of the day,
I will say this about sorry, go ahead, Sheboy.
No, I was just going to say the shooting was there. I thought Keon Brooks played well, and if Ty Washington goes 8 for 14 instead of 3 for 14, this is a game. Kentucky competes, and what we come out here saying is, okay, Kentucky's really good. Duke might just be awesome. And that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it right now. Like, Kentucky's probably like a top 10 to 15 team. I think that Duke, what they've proven to us is they have a chance to, like, let me phrase it like this. Kentucky's the second weekend team. Duke is a Final Four team, right? You had a point about Sheboy. Go ahead before I cut you off.
No, it wasn't Sheboy. It was Severe Wheeler. Back when I was playing, we played against South Carolina. They had a guy named Devin Downey. And Devin Downey, a lot of people have compared him to him, and they're similar in stature and size and all that. Devin Downey was a better scorer than Wheeler, better shooter all around. But our scouting report going into that game was, he's small, we're going to help late. First half, Duke overcommitted to Wheeler. Second half, they're like, we're going to put Wendell Moore on him, and we're just going to let him chase down blocks, and we're going to let Mark Williams help late. And it completely threw Wheeler off his game because he was leaving his feet. He was indecisive. Whenever he got into about 7-8 feet from the bucket, he had a hard time making decisions. Another point, I worry about Ty Washington a little bit more than you guys, because he was beasted last night. That's just bottom line. They had bigger, stronger players at Duke. He was getting pushed off his spots. He struggled to score. What does the SEC have? About as much as any other conference in the country. Big, strong wings, whether it be at Arkansas, whether it be at Florida. Tennessee's got big, strong guards. That's going to be an issue. You said it's more of what Duke is than what Ty is. I agree a little bit, because Duke is fantastic, especially defensively this year. You can see where Coach K has been there all summer. I mean, it was in the first 5 minutes, you could sit and watch that game, and you were like, this team's going to guard this year. This is the first time a Duke team has guarded probably 5-6 years. It's because he had him all summer. But I do worry about Ty Washington because he's so slim, and I don't know that he's going to be able to put on a ton of weight.
No, he's not going to be able to put on the weight. But I'm not ready to write off.
I'm not writing him off. But he's still going to have a great year.
He's got it, but he has to learn how to do that. But I mean, Sean Miller made the point last night on the show. It's unfair to put freshmen into a situation like that in the Garden in their first game and take like these overriding opinions on him. So you are 100% correct. He has to be better. I'm willing to still kind of buy the dip, I guess. I'm willing to believe in him and being able to get this thing turned around.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. It's not as if they're sitting here saying, Ty, you must be this for us today. They have to figure out how they can play to his strengths. And it's a marathon. And here's the thing. Unlike last year, when Kentucky couldn't play to their playmaker strengths because they're asking them to do things that they're really not even there to do, this team does have, if they could just channel, I agree with you on Severe Wheeler. I thought he was circling like a shark last night at the end of the game, trying to figure out where the hell he was going to go with the basketball.
They weren't helping off shooters because they hit 6 in the first half, and Duke completely said, forget it. We're going to let Mark Williams clean up the mess. Theo John's going to be down there waiting on you, and we're just going to let you make plays. If you hit 7-foot floaters all night, we'll live with that. It was a great adjustment. Great adjustment.
It's a marathon, and I think that actually the quote of the night, there was a question that came in from the press pool. It was fun to be in a press pool last night. Like,
and one of the did that.
One of the reporters said to Bill Self, "Bill, you went 11 deep. You played smaller at times. Like, is this who you are?" Bill Self goes, "I don't know who the hell we are." He goes, "I don't know what we're doing. Like from game to game, right? It's a long." He goes, "There are 2 seasons before the real season begins." I thought that was an interesting line from Self.
Yeah. So that wasn't the quote tonight, by the way. The quote tonight was when John Calipari asked Matt Norler, "Did you even watch the game?" Hey, that one cracked me up. All right, let's pivot to Kansas, Michigan State. The talking point there is Ochai Agbaji, 9 for 17 from the floor, 3 for 6 from 3, hit all 8 of his free throws, scored 29 points, big goose egg in the turnover column. To me, Tio, the most impressive thing was his ability to put the ball on the floor, get to the spot that he wanted to get to. We haven't seen him be able to do that in the past. He's been able to shoot. We know about the athleticism. We know about what he can be defensively. We haven't seen that ability to get to the spots that he needs to get to elevate and make shots. And he did that last night.
He was terrific. I mean, all over the floor. And there was a time where Michigan State was making a little mini run. And Kansas calls timeout. You need your senior to be good then. You need him to make a tough shot. Catches an oop, gets a steal, 4-point flip. Quick, fast, in a hurry. He was terrific. And he got CJ Moore. We talked to him last night. He pulled up on a 3. It was a 1-on-2 break. He comes down on the left 45, coming towards us where we were sitting. And he just pulls up, knocks it in. It was incredible. You can write it down that he's going to be an All-American. I want to say in Penn. I tweeted out in Penn last night. But man, his length, his athleticism, his game off the bounce was terrific.
I mean, that's the thing. If he's making those shots, that has been.
And he's doing it against Michigan State. Now I understand like Max Christie is like he's not quite a Michigan State guy as far as toughness is concerned. But you're still running into the rest of those guys. He was unbelievable. I thought he looked like one of the best top 15 players in the country.
It changes his game when he's able to create for himself. And he doesn't have to rely on other people to create for him. And to me, that bigger picture for Kansas, that was what they were kind of missing, right? That was what they didn't necessarily have. We were like, okay, they can scheme stuff up to get David McCormick the ball in the paint. They can find a way to, you're going to get these backdoor lobs. Bill Self is good for 10 to 12 points a game just because he's going to run something and have a counter that no one's seen before, no one's expected. He can manufacture points that way. But when you get down to it, when you get to the end of a clock, and you need somebody to make a play, they didn't have that guy last year. Ochai was that guy last night. You know who else was that guy? Remy Martin was that guy last night, and he was under control. Fanta, talk to me about Remy. Talk to me about Ochai. Talk to me about all your takeaways from Kansas.
Okay, so for Kansas, you just brought up the fact that Bill Self's great out of timeouts and setting things up. He's good for 8 to 10 points a game. When you go to Allen Fieldhouse, the fans are good for another 8 to 10 points a game. You're trailing by 16 to 18 points before you even get a chance to get the basketball. Now you add in a player who is an All-American type of player. I agree with you. I would write that down in pen and look like a pro, and also told us he was this close to going pro. It's the best type of return. And that's the key to success in college basketball. You keep the players around who are close to being pros, as close as possible, but they still play in college. I thought that Kansas last night, having as good of a coach as Self designs great offense. He designs great sets. Guess what happened in the second half? They figured out the fact that, hey, no set's going to be better than just giving Agbaji the ball and letting him work. Like Kansas's best form of offense was letting Ochai go to work last night, and that's really scary because guess what? They got about 3 or 4 other forms of offense that they could use on any given night. That's not the sole formula for Kansas to win by. Remember, they're without Jalen Wilson in this game, and David McCormick didn't even play well in the first half. He struggled for a good portion of that first half.
David McCormick for about the first half looked like David McCormick from the first 6 weeks of last season. And I was like, come on, man, stop with the turnarounds. You're 7 foot 250. We walked by him at the team hotel the night before the game, and all 3 of us were like, oh, yeah, I forgot what big guys look like. Yeah, exactly. And play like that. Play like that. One real quick point, though, that I want to make, because you brought up Ochai declaring for the draft and coming back. First and foremost, it's difficult for guys in a lot of situations to go pro, get the feedback from the NBA, and then come back and be able to utilize that feedback in a way that helps their team win, right? A lot of times it's big guys, we need to see you prove that you can shoot. Well, in college, we don't want Hunter Dickinson proving that he can shoot. We don't want Hunter Dickinson proving that he can play on the perimeter. Get your ass in the post, go dunk on people. You have one hand, but you're the best in the country at using that hand. Yes. Use it, win games that way. Do what you do. The thing about Ochai, and I'm gonna say a name here, and I don't want people to overreact, but it reminds me a little bit of the leap that Buddy Hield made his senior season, right? Buddy Hield for 3 years at Oklahoma was like, okay, he's a glue guy. Okay, he can defend. Okay, his junior year, he averaged like 15 points and shot like 33% from 3 and couldn't really handle the ball, didn't really have an off the bounce game, but was like a good player that probably could have gotten a spot at the end of the bench somewhere. That summer, he goes through the NBA draft process. They're like, hey, man, listen, you got to be better off the bounce and you have to be a great shooter. And he came back and he was crossing people up. He was hitting step backs. He had range out to like 30 feet. He averaged 25 points a game, and it was him and Denzel Valentine, whole season National Player of the Year. He carries the Sooners to the Final Four. I'm not saying Ochai is going to be able to average 25 a game and like be in that national title race and shoot 50% from 3 while taking 8 a game, but he's taken like a similar leap where it's like, okay, well, look, if you're playing off the bounce like that, T.O., you might be an All-American.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, he was terrific. And the thing was, too, when you were watching him play, he did everything that you would need for an NBA role player.
Yes.
He guarded his tail off. Whenever he was switched on to point guards, he guarded his butt off. Tyson Walker disappointed me a little bit. I was expecting a little bit more. Bright lights, Madison Square Garden. Hopefully he can have a better job.
The moment was too big. He's a New York City kid that played a couple years at Northeastern, coming home, playing for Michigan State in the Garden as a kid that grew up in the city. Like that's a big moment, a lot to put on that kid. He's another one where it's like, he's going to be better. That was just.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. But he just did so many things that as a scout, you're sitting there you're looking at a 7-foot wingspan. You're looking at a guy who slides his feet. I'm not going to say at an elite level, but it's damn close. Like the way he shot the ball last night, he never seemed like he was forcing the issue, which was the most important thing. He never seemed like he was forcing the issue. He just took angles, took off, made plays. And even when, some guys, when they're feeling it, me in particular, I think you were like that too. If you're feeling it, it's going up.
Yep.
He didn't force it.
Even if I wasn't feeling it, it was going up. Even if I wasn't feeling it was going up.
Yeah, I know. but he was smart enough. He was like, this is a senior who spent a lot of time under Coach Self, and Coach Self's given him a little extra leash. And because he's improved at such a dramatic rate, I mean, his freshman year, he was good. You could see it. You could say he was a top 100 player. He wasn't a typical
Self said he was 300.
No, he wasn't.
Depending on where you were at, but
he wasn't ranked.
Like
He was like, I
200.
think he went to like a small school and played power forward, and he redshirted. You remember this? Yeah. He redshirted, and then they had a bunch of. I think it was like the Dedrick Lawson. You remember? And then like a bunch of injuries, and he's like, all right, let's pull the red shirt. He comes in, he had like 20 in his first game. Everyone's like, who the hell is this kid? I can't even pronounce his fucking name.
That's what Self talked about, depending on where you had him. But Self said he was an under the radar guy, but he's the classic example of what a great college player and now a pro can be. See, we get into this conversation sometimes, and I see it up close and personal with Villanova, where we sit here and say, I don't know if he's a pro. It's a journey. And again, sometimes coming back to college, it's a best case scenario. Number one, now you can come back. You could still make some dollars with NIL. Number two, you might not fully be framed for the NBA quite yet. Last night, Agbaji looked like he was ready for the NBA. Could have gone last year, but perhaps one more year of Bill Self coaching benefits you more than playing in the G League on a Wednesday night on ESPN+. So like I think that this is the epitome of what the process is, and it's okay to come back because this kid looks like he could be that Buddy Hield type player. Remember, when Buddy Hield takes that rise, he now becomes the face of the sport. He now becomes the face of Big Monday. Like that's what Ochai Agbaji is looking at. I want to bring this up though. I thought that was a natural 29-point performance. Yes. On the flip side, though, I thought Bill Self summed it up post-game, Rob, because you asked earlier, we have not turned to this name yet. Remy Martin stayed within himself in that first half. In the second half, showed us a little bit of what he was at Arizona State and was trying to get shots up. He's still trying to clearly figure out how he fits into Bill Self's Kansas Jayhawks team. But I thought for starters, I'd give a thumbs up to Remy Martin last night. I thought he did what he needed to do, and he showed us that he's willing to change.
Well, the big thing for me is it seemed like he wants to be the guy. It takes a long time for a player of that level to figure out how to change what they've done their entire life, right?
Like he's an alpha personality too. I mean, when you watch that post-game presser, like he's taken, like it doesn't happen too often. You go from Kansas's press conference where they ask Ochai a question and then another guy follows and Remy follows up. That doesn't happen that often. So he's that kind of personality. Man, it's big of him to want to do that. And I thought too, first half Remy was a little
wild,
a little self-involved.
But you kind of want that.
What I mean by that,
you need that out of him for what Kansas had. Like they need a guy that can go out and make a play at the end of the clock. And I think Bill Self has to take the reins off a little bit and kind of let him rock. But it's the kind of thing where it's like you got to make sure you understand. Look, there are moments where you can do this. If there's 7 seconds left on the shot clock and you got the ball, go make a play. That's what you do. But when there's 20 seconds left on the shot clock and I want you to run this set and get the ball to this wing over here so we can get this seal to David McCormick, and you got to stay your ass in the corner because but like, so if he could buy in and do what he needs to be able to do and take advantage of those moments, then he's a really effective player. And I'll tell you this before I throw back to you, T.O., there was nothing better. I don't know if this came through on TV, but there was nothing better than Remy hitting these jump shots and making these plays and then backpedaling back. Every time he hit one, he stared right at Bill Self. He looked right at Bill Self. And it was one of those moments where I was like, I told you what I could do. Don't fucking bench me again.
Yeah. Well, when I say self-involved, this is what I mean. Yeah. When I say self-involved, this is what I mean. It seemed like in the first half, he was worried about the wrong things. Like he's beating his chest. He's going up there. He's walking. He's hitting his head on the stanchion. Like there was just a lot of stuff that was going on. The second half, he settled in. He got focused. There was no ancillary bullshit. Like, and it was like he focused in. And then when he focused in, it's almost like Self could see it. He set a little elevator screen for him. You got a bird in here. You got a bird in Fance's apartment. Got a bird.
For some reason, every time I get a FaceTime, that noise happens. Anyway.
But all the ancillary stuff, he canceled it. And then second half, I thought he was really, really good. And he gives Kansas what they didn't have last year. 2 things. Somebody who can get into the paint on his own. DeJuan Harris does it a little bit, but he's not spectacular in a matter that he's going to be able to bring guys to him and then make something happen. Remy can do that. He brings a level of spurtability because I feel like Ochai is going to be a consistent threat all year. I think after last night, the manner in which he scored 15 to 20, maybe not 28, but 15 to 20 is not out of the question. And I think Remy gives you something that he has the ability to blow a game open like that. He can knock down 8 quick points, put a game out of reach, and Kansas wins because of him.
And here's the thing. When you have that spurt ability at that level of Remy Martin, and you have Agbaji, and we didn't even see Jalen Wilson, and oh, by the way, David McCormick will be far better.
And Christian Brown didn't play very well late either.
Gave him a little spurt in the second half. Here's the other key takeaway from this win. I thought late in the first half, when Kansas found a bit of an advantage going in the locker room where they could say, we've got a separator here. I thought their freshmen were very good in this game. I thought that Pettiford, down the stretch in the first half, Pettiford played like the last 5 minutes of the first half. Terrence, he was terrific. His speed. He is quick as hell, Rob. I said to you, this kid can play.
Hot take T.O. about to come in. Go ahead. Hot take T.O. Bobby Pettiford will be an All-American before he finishes college.
Oh, wow, you are rolling today. I wouldn't bet against that kid. I loved him. It's the tools that I saw last night. It's the tools. Like
his explosion, his lower body, he doesn't get knocked off balance as a freshman. He's under control. He's going to be able to get by guys. Yeah. He's the next North Carolina guard to go to Kansas, and Bill Self can figure it out. And he is tough as nails. I love the kid. I thought he was terrific.
Yeah.
Hot take. Was it Hot Take Wednesday?
Yeah.
Hot Take Wednesday. Baby.
Hey, Caleb Love played well last night, by the way.
Hot Take Wednesday.
He played okay.
He was,
you got anything to add on Michigan State? Anything to say? That they just they don't have. Well, I mean, they don't have a guy. They don't have a killer, and they need a guy that's going to be the killer they can go to. You know, Malik Hall, he ain't ready. And I don't know if he's not ready right now. I don't know if he's ever going to be ready. Joey Hauser, he's not it. Gabe Brown, not like they have a bunch of guys that are good pieces, right? But if they don't have Max Christie as someone that can go out and get you 17, 18 points a game, if you don't have Tyson Walker better than what he was last night, look, he'll be better. Here's no, he will, but we have to see it, you know. And here's the thing about it. AJ Hoggard was their best player last night. The problem is AJ Hoggard has a lot of Rocket Watts in him. A lot of the things that were a problem with Rocket are the same kind of issue with Hoggard, in the sense that he is less of a set the table, get everyone involved. I'm going to find a way to make sure Gabe Brown gets in the spots that make him successful. I'm going to make sure Joey Hauser gets in the spots that he's successful. He's not that dude. He's like, okay, I'm going to go make a play. Sometimes it'll lead to layups for some of my big guys. Maybe I'll get an open three for someone. But for the most part, it's him going out and making a play for himself. A lot of times it was in transition. And that's valuable. You need that. But you need somebody that's going to make the guys around you better. And I don't know if they have that.
I got a question for both of you guys. I saw a Michigan State team that, how many guys on that team did you look at and be like, if that potential turns into production, Michigan State could be very, very good?
Yep. There wasn't much there in the cupboard.
I'm thinking.
When I watch teams play, I ask this question internally. I talk to myself.
Do you?
Yes, I do. So I asked myself.
That's not surprising, by the way. That is not surprising at all.
And it never turns it off.
I asked myself last night, and I asked this when I watch a team play, especially teams that like don't have a number next to their name. You know, I'm trying to figure out who they are, particularly on offense. What is it that Michigan State does well / did well last night? I don't know what their DNA is. I don't know what they're trying to do on the offensive end of the floor.
They turned the ball over really well last night. Yeah, they were really good at throwing the ball into the stands. They were good at missing shots. You know, they were good at getting to the free throw line and not converting and finishing those opportunities.
Our boys over there at was it 3-Man Weave or
Sleepers Media?
Sleepers, rather. Sorry, we have so many good people working.
Carter Elliott is down bad right now.
He's hurting right now.
He's hurting.
He is hurting.
It was a tough watch when they were in the half court, and that's the other thing. Kansas started to, like, if you turn the ball over against Kansas, good night. The game's over. I think Michigan State, the problem is that the idea of figuring it out, if you're going to figure it out, you have to have an alpha. That has to start. They don't have an alpha. I'll be very curious to see what happens. Again, you're playing in the toughest conference in the country, so you don't have physically tough. I think the SEC has tough players, but I think that the Big Ten, we brought up the fact that Coburn, Dickinson, Edey, and Williams, who had a strange line last night, very strange off the bench, only played 15 minutes for Purdue. But I digress. I don't know about Spartans. I'll tell you what. I will tell you guys this right now. Brief note on Michigan State. There is not a bigger non-conference game for the two teams that are playing next week at Hinkle Fieldhouse, Michigan State at Butler. Both those teams need that game. That's a game. That's an early season game. You need it. Michigan State needs it to clean up. Butler needs it because, frankly, they're at home and they're a team that's trying to get themselves back on track this season. So Michigan State has to figure it out. I just don't know who that starts with. Who is their lead scorer this year? I don't know if they have a guy. They don't have an Agbaji. They don't even have a Remy Martin.
They need
it starts with Tyson Walker.
Yeah, they need Tyson Walker to be a guy that can make everybody better, and they need Max Christie to be a dude that can get you 15, 16, 17 a game. And they need guys like Gabe Brown and Joey Hauser to be better.
I'll be honest. I thought Gabe Brown was going to be better too, to be honest with you.
Like Gabe, if you ask Gabe to be a guy that catches some lobs, makes some open threes, plays a little bit of defense, and is just out there being athletic and long and a shooter, he's really good. If you ask him to be someone more than that, yeah, you're asking him to do a little too much.
Okay, so what you just said describes him. It describes Max Christie. It describes Marcus Bingham Jr. They don't have anybody to create those closeouts.
Nope.
They don't have anybody to create those closeouts.
That's the issue.
And that makes you worried.
Yep.
I mean, they have to have that guy.
Butler, Michigan State might be 53-50.
All right, so let's kind of jump around college basketball a little bit. We can make this be like a hot take overreaction section, maybe just box score watching, because all three of us were at the game last night. We didn't see much else. But give me some takeaways. We'll knock these out minute at a time. T.O., give me your first one.
Virginia Navy. It's not necessarily shocking because the manner in which that pack line defense is played, because whenever you're at Virginia, they're going to overhelp. And if you can shoot over contested hands, and a lot of these mid-majors can, Navy in particular, the Chalice lets them shoot it. 11 for 21 from the three last night. Virginia's got to guard better on the perimeter. And offensively, you wonder what their identity is. They did score 60 points or more than 60 points, didn't they? Or it was like 58 or 60. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a high-scoring game for Virginia. They're going to have to guard, and they're going to have to find ways to guard the three, but they're pretty small around the perimeter. The Gardner kid, 18-10, right? Yeah. 18-10. It's still – this Virginia team is a weird fitting team from a personnel perspective.
And they don't have the pros. Like, people talk about, oh, yeah, Tony Bennett's so good at getting these guys to fit together. Well, the year that they won the title, they had Ty Jerome. They had Kyle Guy. They had DeAndre Hunter. Mamadi Diakite is a guy that's going to be there. Like, they had pros.
I think there was a lot of pressure put on Caden Shedrick to be that guy because, I mean, he's got a 7-foot-something wingspan. He's long. He's pretty skilled. He kind of fits the mold if he'll be able to stretch it. But this wasn't a game where Virginia didn't score. I mean, if Virginia scores more than 55 points, they have a legitimate shot at winning every night. They can't. That is the Achilles heel of Virginia. When they got beat by UMBC, UMBC pitches it ahead, shoots it quick, knocks down threes, and it's tough for them. Navy last night, 11 for 21. You hit threes against Virginia, and you can win.
First ranked win for Navy since David Robinson was playing for the Middies. I do great win. That's a program that I think you got to give them a lot of credit for the fact that they go to Virginia and win on opening night. I thought it was a good night for the Mid-American Conference. You got to credit Northern Illinois. And I've got our man here. I thought he was one of the stars of the night last night. Kind of goes about it quietly because of the Champions Classic. His name is Trendon Hankerson. He has 28 points. And Northern Illinois gets their first Power 5 win since 2005. Rashawn Burno making his coaching debut last night. They beat Washington. God, I got to tell you guys, Mike Hopkins at Washington has been a disaster. It has not worked. I'm just telling you, Washington basketball. I mean, they're a far cry from Isaiah Thomas winning a Pac-12 title.
Oh, they are. It was not a
bad night for the Pac-12.
Not a great night for the Pac-12.
Shout out to Matthew Bryan Ammoning, who's a good friend of mine, living over in England right now. But they play 65% of the possessions with 2-3 zone, and Mike Hopkins doesn't have the length that Syracuse had when he was there. Yeah. So the bottom line of that 2-3 zone when you're playing at Syracuse, that is long. You guys know, we're up here in the Great Northeast. Long, athletic, contest shots, even though they're in a zone. They've kind of tinkered with it. Mike Hopkins never tinkered with that zone, and they're small on the baseline wings.
I have a brief question here. Does Mike Hopkins at Washington, the way that's gone, affect heir apparent to Jim Boeheim?
Yeah, probably, but it's not going to matter because Jim Boeheim's going to be there until he's coaching at least another 15 years.
Did you see the AP headline last night?
What's that?
Boeheim leads Syracuse to the season opener win. That was the headline.
How proud to see. He should retire after this year. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Next up, I'm going with Ohio State. I was actually look, Akron is a good team. They might win. Well coached. They might win the MAC. Ohio State did not have Kyle Young. They did not have Justice Suing. And they struggled, right? And they had a freshman step up, Malachi Branham, who made 3 huge plays down the stretch to get that win. Now, we talked about this last night with the Millers, Fanta, but I think that having that kid put in that situation, in that environment against a good team is going to be a very good thing for Ohio State long term. They have to figure some things out. They got to get Justice back healthy. They got to figure out their point guard situation. Kyle Young has to be back. EJ Liddell has to be better. But if you have a guy that you give the rock to and make a play in crunch time, they got that now. And I think that they kind of learned that they have someone that he's not going to be afraid of the moment. And I think that sometimes you need to learn things the hard way, right?
Yeah, sometimes when you can win a game the way that they did last night, it ends up being the best type of a win because you found a way to get the game, but you also found out when you got back in that locker room that, hey, what Holt's telling those guys.
He didn't even wait to the locker room. He got them out on the floor. He's like, guys, this needs to be better. Before he brought them back in there, he gathered them up right away.
Yeah. So, but I think that you felt like we got to understand here that the moment Dwayne Washington decided to stay in the draft, that was colossal to the Buckeyes in the immediate term. This is a team last night that, as you said, they're having to stick people in that are unfamiliar with the situation, but figured it out. Got to figure it out on the fly in this sport. They found a way. Like we look at November 9th and we say, here's my immediate take. And it's fun, right? It's fun. But don't now say that you can't see Ohio State being on the level of some of the others in the Big Ten solely because of this performance. This is a team that does need some time to groom themselves. That's a good Washington was.
They have to get better and they have to grow, but you saw where they can grow. And you got to understand if you're missing, like,
as opposed to Michigan State, we didn't see how they could grow.
Exactly. And if you're missing two starters against any team in the country, especially a well-coached veteran mid-major team in the MAC, the Mid-American, it's almost to that level where you kind of start saying like, yeah, you know what, it could be a too big league. Whoever wins that league,
and they beat the heck out of each other.
Yes,
the MAC beats the heck out of each other. And they take away.
You always got someone that's an 11 seed, a 12 seed that goes and wins a game in a tournament.
It's the league of quick stop coaching too.
Yes,
like John Gross is going to get he'll get another good job.
Though that team was good.
John Gross is a power conference coach.
I got another Big 12 takeaway for you, or a Big 10 takeaway. You ready for this? Zach Edey last night played 21 minutes, started. Trevion Williams played 15 minutes off the bench for Purdue, took one shot from the floor, shot 2 free throws. Purdue as a team, here's the thing that stood out to me. Purdue as a team took 56 shots from the floor. 36 of those shots were from 3, and they shot 16 for 36 from beyond the arc. You remember how we were asking, I don't know how they're going to make shots. I don't know how they're going to space the floor. Well, you know what? They're making shots. He didn't play. He shot 3 for 9. He had 14, but he shot 3 for 9.
What about Stefanovic? I thought I had a point there.
Stefanovic had a great game.
Sasha was 5 for 6.
Well.
Okay, 5 for 6. So those two together.
The Thompson kid.
Those two together.
You can't do that.
Oh, I'm doing it.
The Thompson kid shot well too.
From 3 for 9.
8 for 15. Those two.
We
said we didn't know shooting. We have shooting.
Don't you like when like somebody scores 28 and the other kid scores 12 and you're like they combined for 40? Yeah. It's like
what was it when he said me and Michael Jordan combined for 70 one night and Jordan had 70? I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, but that's weird. I mean, so yes, I think they do have shooting. What did First end up with in that game? Because
you're high on Caleb First.
I am. I'm higher than others. I think that he's got potential. He played pretty well when Purdue scrimmaged Providence. I'll tell you this much here. Trevion Williams only taking one shot. Like I don't care how many threes you took.
That's going to be the role. That's going to be the role that he has to play because Zach Edey is better at what Trevion Williams does best, and Trevion Williams is not going to be a guy that can play it on the perimeter. And
they didn't play together. I'm assuming.
No, they did not play together.
Why is he not a focal point still? Whenever
was Trevion Williams a preseason All-American?
He was first team preseason All Big Ten, and he's not.
He was on my second team. He was on my second team. I mean,
this is second team All-American.
This is what it's going to be, Zach. But
I thought he was going to be really good.
But here's the thing about it: like this is what was coming out of Purdue all off season. We kept hearing about how good Zach Edey has been and how impressive he's been, and there's going to be a chance that Trevion Williams doesn't start. Like this is not. I promise you, this is not something that's surprising to Trevion, and I don't think it's surprising to anyone in that program. And if he accepts this, if Trevion says like, "Look, you know what? This is just what I'm going to be this year. This is just what's going to happen." When Isaac Haas and AJ Hammonds were on the same team and they shared minutes, like senior, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that's what they're going to have to do. That's going to be the juggling act that Matt Painter has to find a way to make work because Bottom line is this: Zach Edey is better at the thing that Trevion Williams is going to be asked to do. And if you're going to build your roster around shooting and a monster in the paint, Zach Edey is the better guy for that paint. One other box score observation I have for you, Fanta. You're a good math guy, right?
I know he's asking me
Is
about
nine for 11? What?
right
Adama Sanogo. I'm just guessing.
It's very
That's
good.
good. 9 for 11.
Yeah,
Is good.
9 for 11's damn
That's
good.
like what? Like 80-something%, right?
It's a great. I mean, post players should go 9 for 11,
Yes,
frankly.
but
But 9
especially
for
when
11.
you're playing Central Connecticut.
I was about to say, yeah. I think
they
I
just
could
scored
get 20
again.
on Central Connecticut
9
right
for
now.
11 is very, very good. Go ahead.
No,
That's the entire thing.
That's your take.
Gotcha.
Look,
That's it.
so I got a tweet last night and said, John Fanta, please fill in the blank for me. And it says Adama Sanogo will be the Big East player of the, and it has YE, and then he just leaves blank for 2 letters to fill in the blank for him, which was very UConn-esque. Look, they looked good. They shot the basketball well last night. That's something that was kind of very
I'm
concerning.
gonna wait until they get to Atlantis before I have any takes.
Yep.
Battle for Atlantis. Battle for Atlantis.
Yeah, first
I'll be
game.
there. I'll be there.
You're going?
I'm going.
You taking the family?
Yep, taking the family. Thanksgiving.
He's not taking me, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
After I took him to Forlini's, after I let him have the good hotel room.
Dude, you almost got us kicked out of Forlini's
No, that
because
guy
the
loved
waiter was just ready.
That guy loved me.
Good hotel room. I'm going to remember
That
that.
guy loved me. He got the long story. I don't need to rant about it again.
No.
Yeah.
Look.
I was upset about it.
I actually would go on. I would say this right now. I think in terms of the Feast Week tournaments, there might not be a more compelling Feast Week tournament opener. Like, because this could be a semifinal or a championship game. Connecticut and Auburn is going to be
fantastic.
a huge matchup.
That's the test right there. That's
both teams.
Yes, that's when we find out who's real.
Another good performance by Auburn last night. Beat the absolute dog out of Morehead State. I'm a Morehead. I love Preston Spradlin. I think he does a nice job. They won the league last year. They've got a pro in Janai Broom. I don't know what level of pro, but he'll make some money, whether it be overseas or whatever. But he's
and
gonna,
Auburn just beat him.
And their front court just overwhelmed him. I mean, he had a really hard time. Auburn, man, intriguing storyline. I picked him for the Final Four, and I am having my doubts, but good start to their season.
Yeah, I think they'll figure. Bruce just figures it out, man.
He's unbelievable.
He'll find a way to figure it out. You guys got anything else before we get out of here?
I like Villanova over UCLA Friday night. I think Justin Moore looked excellent. Justin Moore looked like a stud. Brandon Slater with 17 yesterday. Laconquez and Juzang are outstanding. I like Villanova in this spot. And after what I saw from Zach Edey, I don't care who he was playing. Today, give me Gonzaga over Texas this weekend. I got Gonzaga. Since we won't pod next week, I'll give you those 2 picks. There they are.
One freshman we're not talking about right now. Tennessee had a nice win. I mean, it was a win, but Kennedy Chandler was terrific. 7 of 10, 4 of 4 from the 3. I mean, I didn't credit the kid for being that good of a shooter. He has shot the cover off the ball, both in the exhibition games and game 1. Potential SEC player of the year. He's that talented.
Yeah, he's good.
He's very good.
He's really, really good. What they need is someone that we talked about it with Michigan State a little bit, right? They need someone that can create and
he's that guy.
Create that initial closeout. And Kennedy Chandler can be that guy. I'm just upset that he wasn't there last year because I feel like that's what they were missing.
Hey,
that's exactly what they were missing.
Last thing for me. If Sean and Archie Miller played one-on-one right now, I would make Archie a 2.5-point favorite.
I think it's more than that. I think it's significantly more than that.
11.5-point favorite.
11,
okay, there you go.
I think
There
it's
you
more
go.
than
That's
that
all I
right now.
got.
That's all he got right now. Well, listen, this has been fun. What a great week we had.
Yeah, you need me to fly up here every week. I can do this for the
9 hours
show.
of live streaming during the day. We had an hour-long show with Archie Miller and Sean Miller last night.
Mm-hmm.
We just knocked out this podcast here in the Fanta Studios, the Hoboken Studios, the Field of 68. How about that? The Hoboken Studios, the Field of 68. For John Fanta, for Terrence Oglesby, I'm Rob Dawson. This was the DTF podcast.